So real quick video just about some jargon around LGSCO decisions. I just kind of came across this the other day. Within LGSCO decisions, you will see a finding about whether there's been maladministration, and then something about whether that maladministration has caused injustice. And although these words are obviously linked together, I guess it's just important to understand, because not only is it kind of worth just understanding it to actually understand what the LGSCO is saying in these decisions, but it can also potentially inform your practice if you are making complaints. And in effect, maladministration is when the council hasn't followed the law correctly. Quite well, almost always, in the sense that they haven't followed the right process. So they didn't engage with the homeless application process when they should have. They didn't issue decisions when they should have. They didn't tell applicants about information when they should have, those kind of things. That would all be maladministration, but that in itself is not the thing which gets people compensation. You have to show that the maladministration has caused injustice. So, if the council didn't engage with a relief duty and they didn't send a particular letter to someone at the right time, but they housed that person in suitable accommodation and then accepted the main housing duty, and that person was then housed in a timely fashion, although there has been some maladministration there, no one really cares. That's the bottom line. That applicant is probably unlikely to care that they didn't get another letter with some jargon on it at some point, because they got housed, they got a good service from the council. Whereas, let's say the council doesn't provide accommodation at all when they should have, that would be maladministration. But the fact that they've been left homeless, that would be maladministration that's caused injustice. And that is when you're then in the ballpark of kind of compensation claims. And I guess, so that's just kind of, might be interesting in one thing, but it's probably worth saying, and I had a conversation with a housing officer a few weeks ago, and she was a very experienced housing officer who just basically started at a new council, and she kind of landed there, and basically she'd been told by the boss, basically explicitly break the law. So there's a backlog of cases, and the manager would just say, look, get rid of them, just kind of clean them off. And so she was kind of like, well, what do I do in this situation? And I didn't have any kind of perfect answers for her, but I suggested that there's going to be things, there's going to be things that housing officers do which will be maladministration, not sending the right letter out at the right time. But if housing officers just prioritise those things which cause injustice, and again, I appreciate, even then, it doesn't actually solve the problem a lot of time. But if housing officers were just to focus on injustices rather than maladministration, I think it's probably a better way of doing things. And equally, if you're an advocate and you're complaining about something, yes, you can nitpick and kind of say, you didn't do this particular letter at a certain time or whatever. You can do that, and you could take it to the LGSCO, and eventually they would make a finding. Yep, the council did kind of break the law in some way, but unless it causes injustice, it doesn't seem to me to be a good use of time. And yes, you're going to have complaints which involve maladministration, which does cause injustice, and ones which don't, and maybe it's just worth kind of throwing in saying, actually, your process here isn't right, didn't make a difference in this case, but it's worth considering. But I think unless there's been that injustice to the person, first of all, they're probably not going to care that much, and secondly, you're going to focus then on getting councils to improve on things which do make a difference. And you can kind of see even cases where the council didn't offer temporary accommodation when they should have, interim accommodation when they should have, and that was still not seen to have caused injustice, because when the council did actually follow the law, maybe a week later or something, that person turned down the accommodation anyway. And so the LGO would say, yes, the council did fail, but when they offered you suitable accommodation anyway, you still turned it down. So, we would think that if it had happened a week earlier, then you would have still turned that down, and therefore we're not going to find injustice. So again, you can kind of see that kind of interesting relationship between these two kind of concepts within these decisions. But as I say, I just thought that might just be a bit of useful jargon to kind of bust out there, and maybe something that kind of helps people focus on when you're either doing a housing officer job or when you're challenging housing officers, is probably just better to focus on those things which actually make a difference to people, and basically not just nitpick everything housing officers do wrong. Because there isn't, again, since the HRA came in particular, I just can't see how housing officers can possibly do their job legally every time, because there's just so much paperwork with it, so much complication, so much convolution, much of which doesn't actually make any difference to anyone anyway. So it's just ridiculous, but that's the way it is at the moment.